Hello, you are now entering the infinite void. Hang on tight. We cannot save you now.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm your co-host Matty.
And I'm your co-host Jacob, and today's episode is part 3, the finale of our series, Crewed Spaceflight or Space Missions. And this week's episode is going to be all about the future. So if you didn't know, we broke this series down into 3 parts. Part 1, the first episode, was all about the past and all of the different crewed missions that have happened throughout our history. And then part 2, which was the last episode, was all about like current space missions, where we kind of touched on a few of like the Dragon demos and Crew 1s and Crew 2s and all that stuff aboard the ISS. And then today's episode, as I just said, is all about the future. So we're going to be kind of talking about why it's important to go and spread out into the stars, really, and go check out other planets. And I don't like using the word colonize, but that's what we'll use for now. And yeah, and we'll talk about maybe some of the missions that are going to be coming up. And then we thought to kind of finish it off, we could talk about maybe some of the other honorable mentions that maybe aren't crewed, but are quite special. And I think will be interesting ones. Because, you know, this James Webb telescope has got me pumped. And when I was doing some research for this, I was just looking at some of the lists, as you saw, Matty, that I sent over to you too. Like, there's so much stuff happening in the future. Like, it genuinely feels like we're moving into like a proper space age.
Yeah, I think that sort of summarizes sort of how I feel about space at the moment. Is that, you know, this series for me is put into context a lot of sort of like how far we've come in quite a short space of time. Like our first episode looking at like the past of crewed spaceflight. The stuff was obviously amazing. We did amazing things, but there was always a sense that it was like dangerous, and we were sort of always on the cutting edge of what was sort of possible. You know, like with the Mercury and Apollo missions, and even the space shuttle. To be honest, it didn't. We were doing weird things and like really pushing what we could do.
Yeah.
And then in our last episode, with the sort of things that are happening now, and have been happening for the last sort of 5 years or so, with the sort of rise of SpaceX and more recently sort of Blue Origin, we're sort of at this point now where space is moving from something that is weird and sort of a novelty to something that we are starting to do more regularly and starting to sort of see actual commercial and scientific and humanitarian benefits from. And I think today, when we sort of go into our episode, we'll see that we're just going to be doing more of that. And a lot of the missions are about, and obviously we do a lot of cutting edge science still, but a lot of it is actually just about making what we already know and what we've already done and doing it again and doing it cheaper or better or faster or more sustainably. And a lot of the things that I think we're going to talk about are sort of more in that field of not cutting edge, but trying to make space every day in a boring but interesting way.
No, I'd agree with you. I just think it's really, really cool. Like, this series has been an interesting one because I think sometimes it's a bit of a stale topic, isn't it? Because everybody has kind of like talked it to death. Mm-hmm. But I think what my realization has kind of been, especially the last episode and doing research for this one, is like you were saying, like how far we have come and actually like how quickly everything's kind of changing and moving.
Yeah.
And I think that is really cool. And even it's happened even pretty quickly, like since we've even started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like me and you in the first episode are like sitting there and we're talking about like space debris and how there was a couple of launches a year and how we were like worried that they were going to become exponentially more. And like now that it just does seem like there's always launches.
Mm-hmm.
Like I very rarely am able to like watch them all now as much as I used to. Like it felt like they were more like an event. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And nowadays there's so many always going on, whether it's like a a test flight of something, or like a Starship hop, or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? And it's just, there's so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I like that there's different rockets too. Like,
Yeah.
that's another cool thing that I really appreciate about it. And apologies to all the listeners as well that we've had like a couple of weeks off. We've just been extremely busy, but I don't know if you've seen it. You've obviously seen it, Matty, but you know, all of that SLS stuff is just insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
Cool.
those photos of that thing rolling down with that moon behind it and everything, it's just incredible. I'm so pumped for that.
Yeah.
And that's obviously something we're going to be talking a little bit about today. And I know we did an episode, I think we've done an episode on Artemis, and we've done an episode on the Mars missions. So these are obviously two things that we're going to be touching on a little bit today too. But I figured a good way to kind of kickstart this episode off would be to kind of say why going multiplanetary is a positive thing, or a good thing to kind of think about. And this is why some of these kind of like future crewed missions are kind of thinking that way, especially with Artemis and Mars. Maybe not so much in like private space endeavors and private space stations and tickets to go to orbit and stuff, but definitely more so on like the bigger projects that we've got our eyes on scope for like the next 10 to 20 years. Yeah. But yeah, essentially it's just been argued that it's pretty much the only way that you can ensure survival of human civilization, because if there's a planetary disaster, there is literally nothing we can do. And I think that's pretty obvious, really. You want to have two homes, not just one. Because if something goes wrong with your one, you're kind of screwed. And basically colonizing other planets, I don't like that word, but colonizing other planets allows for like the dispersal of humans, and it kind of increases the likelihood of our survival. And it also kind of increases the likelihood of us being able to kind of have like more innovation, bigger population, bigger consciousness, more discoveries, more capabilities, but then we use more resources. And it kind of like just allows everything to grow. So I feel like thinking on those kind of terms, it kind of just makes sense to go to the moon first and then go to Mars, because they seem to be like the two closest planets for that. But
yeah, I think for me, you know, the things you talked about are obviously important, but I think for me it's just, there's just something innately human about wanting to go and do stuff. Like, this is the reason why we left the cave, and why sort of people travel out in boats across oceans and discover new lands and stuff. Is that like humans do this? Like, this is what we're meant to do: is go and discover new things. And you know, we could, we all talk about the economic and the humanitarian and scientific sort of benefits of doing all this stuff, but I just want to just do it because it's cool.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. It's like, doesn't Elon say that or something like that? Like, a future is cool if you're thinking like it in those terms, kind of thing. Like, you don't want to be bound to like, well, that's just it. This is it, kind of thing. This is as good as it's gonna get, kind of thing. Like, you want to go and see what's out there, and like, I agree. I've grown up reading like sci-fi all my life, so this kind of stuff is just like what gets me going. You know what I mean? I love nothing more than thinking about the future and like all the possibilities and what humanity might do. And I just think it's cool that like we're actually finally moving into a time where this is happening. Like, it. I know, obviously, last episode we talked about like recent crewed space missions and stuff like that, but it's been so long since we've like been to anywhere but Earth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Been 50 years now.
Yeah.
The 2 steps on another body.
I know, and that's just nuts. And like, technology's got so much better.
Yeah.
Like, so much better. Like, every aspect of that mission, I'd say probably the technology is like tenfold better now, right?
Yeah, I'll definitely. The one that's always talked about is like the computing power.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was reading a thing actually about. Someone said, well, if we want to go back to the moon, which is fair enough, why are we bothering to build, the SLS? Why are we bothering to sort of discover all this new stuff? Why don't we just find out the plans, get the plans for Saturn V out and build another one of those? Like, it's being planned, it's being built already, we know that it works. Why not just build another one? And this documentary said, well, the reality is that like the technologies that we used to build Saturn V have all been replaced. Like, they don't exist anymore. Like, Saturn V was built by people in massive warehouses, literally sketching stuff out on paper, and then like using like slide rules and manual tools to like actually make this stuff. And although like they said, like in some ways it's amazing that the technology is developed how it is now, and space launch system will be using the latest technology, but there is something sort of almost nice about the way that Saturn V was like hand built. And we won't ever see anything like it again. And they said it goes for the same with a lot of technologies. Everyone at the same documentary was about Concorde. We couldn't build Concorde nowadays because we just don't have the expertise and the people to do what it was built with. But yeah, it's incredible sort of how things have changed. We said about sort of 50 years since we landed on the moon, but even the 20 years or so since the turn of the millennium, with space shuttle obviously still in the skies then, and we're finding out now with the International Space Station, trying to repair something that is 20, 30 years old. We just don't have the parts to do it. So.
Yeah. I was saying this to my partner when we were having like a little walk on the beach. I was saying, I wonder if we'll ever in the future have like space tours where you can go and fly past like Voyager 1 or Voyager 2. Just to be like, that right there, that was like one of those things, like when they say like technology will just get better so you can like go and overtake something that left Earth 50 years ago kind of thing, or catch up.
Yeah.
But that would be cool. But yeah, let's kind of kick it off really with, I'd probably say Artemis, because that's coming up nice and fast. Like we were just kind of saying, then you get, I think, when do we know, have we got a launch or like anything like that yet for SLS, or are they just showing it off at the moment?
So Artemis 1, which is going to be I think the first sort of uncrewed mission. I think basically Artemis and SLS is so big that they can't, and it's a government project, they can't use the approach of SpaceX of just firing lots and lots of rockets. They're going to go with sort of the old NASA thing of, we're going to go big first time round. So Artemis 1 is proposed for June of this year, 2022. It could slip by, I think, a couple of months. It's going to be an uncrewed lunar orbit. So...
Jeez. They're just going all out straight off the bat.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I'm not sure on what other on what test flights they're going to do, but I've got the impression that will be the first launch of SLS.
And what? And then what? Artemis 2 is 2 years later. Yeah.
So I've got the list up. So the list that I can see is Artemis 1 will be that uncrewed launch lunar orbit. Artemis 2 will be a crewed lunar flyby in May of 24. Artemis 3 will be 2025 sometime with a 4-person lunar orbit with 2-person lunar landing. March 26 will be a 4-person lunar orbit and the delivery of the IHAB module for Lunar Gateway. And Artemis 5 will be, I think I said Artemis 6 last time, Artemis 4, sorry. Artemis 5 will be 2027 with a lunar landing and delivery of the Sprite refueling module for Lunar Gateway. So it's all very quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's awesome.
But this is what NASA do, isn't it? They build big stuff and make it work.
That's crazy, though, isn't it? That is actually crazy that they're like
Mhm.
making something that big and then they're like firing it off into space and hoping that it
Yeah.
well, they're not hoping, obviously. They've spent a lot of
Mhm.
time working everything out, but
Yeah. So
wow.
yeah. Just to confirm, Artemis 1 will be the first launch of the SLS. So
Is
June
it
20.
is any of it reusable, or is it kind of like a one job?
I don't think it is. I think the only thing that might be the capsule, but I'm pretty certain the rocket isn't. So
Fair enough.
yeah,
That's awesome, though.
yeah, it's going to be it's going to be crazy. It's stupid to think that they said June. It's likely to slip by a couple of months, but let's say within 6 months we're expecting SLS to have launched.
Yeah, that's just nuts, and like everything else that's got to go with it too. Do you know what I mean?
hmm
Like you were saying, like there's the Lunar Gateway. Isn't there like the Orion vehicle thing as well?
Yeah, yeah. So Ryan's going to be the sort of spacecraft capsule, which is going to carry people. So I'm not sure whether that is launching in Artemis 1, actually, with it being an unmanned mission.
Yeah.
But yeah, either way, it's going to be insane.
And this is working as well with Space Force, isn't it? So there's going to be like a whole new
hmm
kind of sector going with that.
hmm
Wow. That's going to
Yeah.
move so fast. And it's moving fast as well with Mars. SpaceX
Yes.
seem to have like a whole crazy plan together as well.
hmm Yeah. SpaceX's stuff is perhaps even more insane, to be honest, with their timeline for doing stuff.
Do you think, right, that it's possible? Because Elon Musk seems pretty confident that it's going to happen by 2026. Like, does he mean that they're just going to get to Mars? Someone's going to like orbit Mars, like a little flyby, or does he mean like boots on the ground, 2026?
Uh, I know the plan is to get the original aspiration was 2024, wasn't it, for a landing on Mars?
Yeah.
That's now been put back, and 2024 is meant to be the goal for an uncrewed mission. So I think it hinges on that. If they get an uncrewed mission to Mars in 2024, I think it is conceivable that a crewed mission will go there.
That's
within
so
2
close,
years.
though. That's so close. That is
But-
literally like the pandemic.
Yeah, but I do think it hinges on that. I would, if we see the uncrewed mission in 24, I would say it's better than 50% chance we'll see a crewed mission in 26. The actual probability of there being an uncrewed mission in 2024, I would not put at 50%. I think there's a lot of work to do yet. Presumably that, as I understand it, that uncrewed mission would essentially be testing all of the life support systems. That
Yeah.
has to be. This is the problem: is that there's obviously a lot longer turnaround time with Mars, just it being far away and the orbits that you can use. So before you could put people there, you have to have done a landing, or at least a flyby, with all of the systems in place. And at the moment, I don't think those systems exist.
Well, they're going to be helping their Artemis, aren't they? So maybe if they've got like the year, because what, 25?
Mm-hmm.
2025. So
Yeah.
if they might if they did an uncrewed with maybe not everything in place, but like just can we get something to Mars and back?
Mm-hmm.
And then they tested in 25, maybe. It depends how much money Elon wants to like burn, I guess, too.
But this is the thing with SpaceX thing that they've got going for them, is that their design approach is just to build stuff and fly it.
Yeah.
And if it fails, then
this is probably going to sound like a ridiculous question, but like, could we run out of enough resources to get to these planets if we just burnt them all up on our planet? Like, could you essentially run out of enough fuel to get on a rocket to Mars? Say, like in ultimate climate disaster, like we sucked enough of it out of the planet. I know, obviously, there are different kinds of gases for different things, and it uses like liquid nitrogen and all that kind of fun stuff.
I don't know, to be honest.
I'd just be interested in if like a species or like a thing could like use all of its resources and then not even be able to get off its planet.
It's a lot of stuff you'd have to use.
Yeah. Probably die before you get to that point.
Yeah. But yeah, I think because the Starship is meant to launch this year, isn't it? Expected to reach low Earth orbit, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess we'll just have to see how that goes. But as I said, that there's so much more stuff to be done,
and it's
to get to Mars.
Yeah, and it's not just this area; it's the other two areas too, because they're building that Probos and Deimos launch pads, aren't they? They've got that Mechazilla arm thing that they're working on.
Yeah,
haven't they? They've just done that, announced that new mission with. I'm gonna butcher the name of the space company now. The ones that are making those SpaceX EVA suits.
I forgot it.
I think it begins with a P, but I could be wrong.
Quick Google. I've not found it.
Nice.
I don't know. I can't remember.
I think the other thing, though, to kind of mention here too is that I feel like a lot of other companies will probably crop up too. Do you know what I mean? Like, even since we've started this podcast, there's been like 20 or 30 new companies that I've seen like pop up on social media that are all to do with space. Even if they're just providing like a part of like a piece of technology that goes into space or something. Do you know what I mean? Like it's huge.
Yeah, the space industry has always been about lots of companies doing stuff together.
Yeah,
you know, we talk about NASA doing Apollo missions. That was a huge effort by a lot of different companies. And I think we'll see that going forward. You know, we can see that with the Artemis program. A lot of companies are involved in it. I do think that when a company is likely going to be SpaceX cracks moon landings and Mars landings, they will essentially have a monopoly over it. And because we're already sort of seeing that with launches here on Earth.
Yeah, they just have all of them now.
Yeah, because it's a very expensive industry to get into. In the same way, it's like, I guess, sort of like aviation. You don't see new aerospace companies pop up. All planes are essentially all planes are Boeing, Airbus, perhaps Embraer. Like, and it's the same thing with rockets. Like, it's such an expensive industry to get into that you just don't see competition come along. And also, being the first one to get there gives you the benefit that you have the most testing and most track record going forward. Once you've done one, you have one more moon landing or one more Mars landing than any other company. So I do think, assuming that it goes well and SpaceX do get there, I doubt we will see another company offering as a commercial service like Mars landings or lunar orbits, those sorts of things. But going forwards, definitely we will see lots of different companies collaborating and sort of subcontracting and stuff. So,
did you see that Wales is getting some investment?
Yes, I did see that
for some future launch stuff. They want to build like a launch site or something up in North Wales. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, another one.
What we want. I'd love to see a rocket launch in the UK. To be fair,
I have said that I will be very tempted to go to Florida when they launch the Artemis moon mission, Artemis 3.
Yeah, no, I am too. We should just do it. What we could do is we could make like one of those things now where like a GoFundMe for the Infinite Void. We could be like, you guys have got 3 years. We'll take as many donations as you want, and once we get enough money for 2 tickets, we'll just book it all, and we'll just go and live stream our reactions to this rocket taking off.
Yeah. I just can't wait to see it. I think, like we're a generation that grew up without knowing people on the moon, and I'm almost as interested just to see sort of like what the public perception of it is and like how much news it generates and just like the hype, because so I've got a physics background. We're both sort of massively into this stuff. I just want to see like what it feels like to be a part of that, and like
yeah, no, I agree with you. I was thinking about this though. Do you think any of it's going to get like delayed or anything because of obviously what's going on with the world?
I think Artemis and SpaceX will both be okay, to be honest. Unless things go really badly. But as things stand at the moment, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah. What about with like all this stuff going on with Russia and everything? Because obviously that's
the International Space Station is a bit worrying. What's happening?
Yeah.
And there has been a lot of talk about Russia saying, "Well, we won't give you launches and we won't give supplies, and we'll essentially let our bit fall out the sky," sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, it's a bit worrying. But I think I still think that space is this sort of weird other place. Even with what's happening in Russia and Ukraine at the moment, the Russian astronauts recently wore like the yellow and blue spacesuits. I don't know whether it's just because it's not on Earth, but it just sort of feels like it operates out of normal, outside of normal political stuff.
Yeah, it was cool. It was cool as well to see the what's it called? Shoot, I can't remember what it's called. It's that internet from the space, Starlink.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to see that go out to like Ukraine and stuff too, and like it's cool that because that was from space, like no one could kind of stop it.
Yeah,
it's changing, and all of the imagery that's coming in as well that we can see, like that's nuts in itself.
Yeah, like we've never really discussed it on the podcast, but maybe we should do this in a future series. It's like just space imaging, because it was not that long ago when, like, during the Cold War, like 60s, 70s, when the absolute best images you had of like Russia, say, were literally like a U-2 spy plane flying over with a physical film camera and taking pictures from the edge of space.
Yeah.
And now, like, anyone, like, you just go on BBC News or you go on like Google Earth, you go on and you just see pictures where you can make out like people standing on the ground.
Yeah. And is it that there's one, isn't there? Is it like Planet or something like that has that? They always specialize by doing it, like they post images after like the natural disasters, like when that thing blew up on that dock, they like showed the before and after image and stuff like that. I just think it's awesome.
Yeah, Maxar do a lot of imaging as well. But it is mind blowing when you think about it, like how much access we have to these sorts of things.
It is. So another thing that we thought it'd be kind of cool to like mention is obviously just a few other things that aren't crewed, but they're kind of like future space missions that are kind of coming up. And obviously one of the ones which we kind of talked about quite a lot in Twope News was the Osiris-Rex one. That's coming back to Earth after it's got its sample from the asteroid Bennu. And that's coming back in September 2023. And then I think sometime around 2023 to 2025, you've got the Europa Clipper, which is going to be another exciting little mission. And that's the one where they're sending Is it orbiting Jupiter but studying Europa, or is it orbiting Europa?
I think orbiting Jupiter.
That would be
think.
cool. Have we actually? We haven't done anything like that for a while, have we? Since, well, the Cassini one or whatever it was, right?
No, I don't think we have. So
That'll be fun.
yeah. Oh, missions to planets other than Venus and Mars are quite rare, to be honest. Even now.
Yeah. Well, then you've got the after that one, you've got the Dragonfly one in 2026. That looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which is going to be a quadcopter on Titan. That's crazy. It's like, yeah, Mars isn't enough. Let's go to the moon of is it Saturn? Yeah. Or Jupiter? Yeah, Saturn. Yeah, I love Titan. Titan's a sick planet. I didn't even know that the ESA had a mission to go into the orbit of Mercury.
Yeah, Bepi Colombo.
That's cool. See, this is what I'm
Bepi
saying.
Colombo.
Look, this is all within like 2030. It looks like we're going to have sent something to all of the planets in our solar system pretty much by then. And like surrounding asteroids. Yeah,
it's a pretty crazy time. 2032 Envision. That's ESA's Venus orbiter as well. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy time. Stuff being developed, going places.
That is. And then obviously I had to include this one at the end because I thought it was funny. 4 million years in the future, you've got Pioneer 11, which is going to be a NASA flyby of a star. Lambda, how do you say that? Aquilia?
Aquila.
Cool. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Have they sent the Pioneer one, or are they working on that?
Yeah, Pioneer.
Is it like
they were old. They were the first ones to fly past Jupiter and Saturn, I think. I can't exactly remember when they were launched, but
so is
Pioneer.
that still going to? That won't have. Will it have power in 4 million?
Not in 4 million years.
So it's just going to fly past the star in 4 million years.
Mm-hmm.
Nuts. Talk about like littering. That is some serious litter. That's like other solar system. 4 million years later. Have that. Was it radioactive by any chance?
I think it did have.
Nice.
The isotope stuff on it.
Yeah, let's crash that on a planet that might be developing some life. I don't. This is completely off topic, but our listeners are used to that by now. I had a good idea for a series. So anybody listening that's a writer, you should definitely do this, right? Someone should do a series where like the world gets like destroyed, right? But it's a little bit in the future where we're spacefaring, but the world gets destroyed, and they should do like a thing where like no one recorded any sounds of Earth or had like any of like that kind of data, and they realize that the only place that this has been saved is on these like satellites, but because the Earth's been destroyed, there's no like tracking system anymore for where it is, and the whole series could be about humans of the future having to like go and look for old human tech that we've sent out into space that might have like messages on it and stuff and information from Earth. So yeah,
pretty cool.
Anyone out there, you could totally do something, sell it to Netflix or Amazon. All I ask is that you just shout the podcast out. Maybe give us like a little bit of royalties too, because it would help. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up, really, doesn't it, for this week's episode?
I think so.
I think we're not sure yet what the next series is going to be. I think we'll be putting a poll out this week with maybe a couple of suggestions. Oh no, we do know what the next one's going to be. We don't know what the one after that one's going to be. So get ready for that announcement. It should be a fun one. I think it's very fitting for current situations, but that always kind of seems to be the way with what we choose. We need to start picking like more happy topics, because the last few have been pretty depressing. But I feel like this one's been fun. I always love talking about space, to be fair. I feel like whenever we they're kind of always like, it's always the topic we return to. But I feel like we definitely need to do a return to space debris at some point too. I feel like that that is due at some point. But yeah, if you enjoyed this episode and you are watching it on YouTube, make sure to go and like it, share it with all your friends, and go and hit that bell and turn notifications on so you can be notified when new episodes come out. And if you're listening on an audio version like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever else you might listen to your podcasts, make sure that you are following or you're subscribed on whatever the platform is so you can be notified when new episodes come out, and they show up in your library so you don't have to mess around. They're just there and they'll download so you don't even need Signal to listen to them. So it's great to go and do. And yeah, if we missed any future space missions that we should have talked about or anything, let us know down in the comment section below. And if you want to have a chat with us on social media, you can go and find us at Infinite Void Pod on both Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to at me for my amazing film idea / series, you could just at me at Jacob E. Carson. And if you want to chat to Matty about all amazing things SLS, you can find him at the Matty JMP. And yeah, guys, we will catch you next episode. Hey everyone, we wanted to take a moment to tell you about our brand new Patreon page.
Yeah, so we've devised a load of new goodies that are neatly packaged across 3 different tiers for you.
Tiers start at £3 and go all the way up to £10 a month.
Just to say, the Patreon is in no way an obligation, and we're going to continue making the podcast as it is, freely available across all the platforms. But if you'd like to support us and show your support, you can now.
So yeah, head over to patreon.com/Infinite Void Pod for more information.